Do you need to sell your house fast? This video will get you more money for your home. Look, it's a long video, but we're a ton of content, including strategic pricing, aggressive marketing, curb appeal, which is the outside of the house, and staging, which is the inside of the house. So, look, my name is Patrick. I'm a real estate agent. I earn my living by helping people just like you sell properties and buy properties here in Orange County. All of my information is in the description of this video. You can also scan the QR code to get all my contact information right into your phone. So look, sometimes life throws us curveballs and there's storm clouds, there's bumps on the road. And believe me, I have had some of those as well. And if you go to Google and you search for sell my house fast, there's a ton of options that come up. There's lots of options. And all those people are cash buyers. They're companies and individuals that will buy your house for cash. And look, they'll do it fast. You'll get it done very, very quickly, but you're going to end up accepting a lower price as a result. And there's a lot of companies you're probably familiar with already. There's Open Door. You've heard many of these companies. There's OfferPad. There's also Home Light, and there's a few that are really specialized here in Southern California. Sunday is really focused in the Los Angeles area. And then as well, Seller's Advantage is kind of more broadly Southern California. So there's a lot of companies, but I'm here to tell you, I can get you more. I can get you more using a traditional MLS listing. Again, there is a spot, a place in the market for cash buyers. There are some people that are willing to take a lower price, 10, 20, sometimes 30% less, just to get the deal done quickly. But I can get you more money. It will take a little bit longer, but not that much longer. And the difference can be quite significant. Put some extra money into your pocket. So number one, strategic pricing. And we have to understand that in real estate, the first 14 days are absolutely critical. When a new property is put on the MLS, all the activity happens right at the very beginning. And so we have to have it priced correctly so that we can take advantage of that increased activity. In fact, the activity peaks right around day number 10. So by the time you get through the first 2 weeks, that's 14 days, you're kind of already on the backside of that curve and the activity starts to drop off. So literally the first week to 10 days is absolutely critical. And the bottom line is that we want to be on this green line. If people have priced it strategically, they've got the right price. It's an aggressive price. We'll talk about that in a second. You get a ton of activity in week one and week two and even in week three. But if you're on the orange line, that's if it's overpriced, and you'd be amazed, probably two-thirds to three-quarters of the listings in Southern California right now are in this category. And if they're overpriced, they don't get a lot of attention at the beginning. They get very little activity. And then down the road, they actually have to lower the price to try and get activity. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. And you end up losing. So it's really important to price it aggressively right out of the gate because we want to generate that excitement, right? When a new listing comes, it's priced aggressively. We create that feeding frenzy where all of a sudden everyone's excited. Everyone wants to see the property. My phone is ringing as a listing agent, and we end up with multiple offers. That's what we want. We want a bidding war to bring the price up to where you want it and hopefully even higher. So when I come to your property to do what's called a listing presentation, if I'm going to sell your property, if I'm going to help you sell your property, then I'm going to come to your property. I have to see what we're selling. Obviously, I'd like to meet you guys and have a conversation with you guys, but I'm going to come with two numbers, not one. The first one is going to be the market price. In other words, what I think your house is going to sell for. But then I'm also going to bring what I recommend as the listing price, which is going to be just a little bit below the market. And that's the key. We want to be like 4%, 5% below the market because that's what's going to generate that excitement. That's what's going to generate that activity, that feeding frenzy. And then the bidding war will get us up to the number you want and ideally even higher. But it's not going to happen if we overprice it out of the gate. You have to price it aggressively and then know that the bidding war is going to bring it up. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to accept an offer at all. Like if no offer comes in that satisfies your hopes and aspirations for the property, you don't have to accept any of the offers. So you're not risking anything by coming in a little bit below market. And if everything falls apart for some reason, you can always go back to the cash buyers anyway. But if we come in aggressively with a good price out of the gate, we get that excitement. We have really good odds of getting it up to 100% market value and even higher. And that's the goal. So I'm going to do a CMA, what's called a comparative market analysis. And anyone in this industry is going to do one of these where they're going to look at three properties which are very similar to yours. And they're going to use that to try and determine what the ideal market price is for your home. But I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to actually pull the entire inventory of all the properties that have the same basic characteristics as your home. Now, if you're looking at this screen, it's obviously an Excel spreadsheet. If your eyes are glazing over, don't worry about it, right? This is my job. I'm trying to show you what I do on the back end to make sure that we can price the property aggressively, right? Because people aren't going to go into the market and look at only the three properties that I looked at in the CMA, the comparative market analysis, to determine whether or not yours is a good deal. They're going to look at everything that's available at that moment in time. So we have to know what are they going to see? What's available on the marketplace? So I pull one of these, and every listing presentation that I go to, I always have one of these with me, one of these Excel spreadsheets, because it allows us together to look at all the inventory that's on the market and get an idea of where the ideal price should be. So the first thing I do is I sort everything by the price per square foot. That's of the actual structure, the living structure, the home itself. But then I also look at the price per square foot of the entire lot size, because at the end of the day, you're buying land. So the size of your lot factors into the value you're providing in the property. And then if we take numbers and add them together, that's what comes up with this column. I just highlighted it in green that says price per both. It's basically a combined figure. Now, the actual number is kind of arbitrary. It doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's a great way for us to look at value and be like, okay, how do we want to price this property to make sure that we're on the front end of that list? Right? We look competitive. We look like we're pricing it aggressively compared to all the other properties. Now, I also want to point out the last column on the right-hand side, and you can't see the heading because the video feed of me is covering the heading, but it says DOM, which stands for days on market. And this relates back to what I just said a second ago, where we want to leverage the first 2 weeks. Like ideally, we want your property sold in contract within 2 weeks. That's the goal. But what I've done here is I've highlighted all the properties that have been on the market for longer than 40 days. And some of these are just unbelievable. Like look at this one at 349. And lower down on the page, you've got 247 and then even a third one at 174. It's a disaster. And I blame the listing agent because somewhere between the owner and the agent, they have a completely unrealistic expectation of what that house is going to sell for. These properties are overpriced. So if we're going to sell your house and do it fast, we have to make sure that we're pricing it aggressively and it can go and go quickly. We want to take advantage of those first 10 days. We want to be on that green line. That's what's going to get us multiple offers. Okay, number two, aggressive marketing. And this is incredibly important. If you need to sell your property fast, there are things that we can do to make sure we get this thing sold. So, number one, the most important tool we have is the MLS. It astonishes me, honestly, how many listings I see on the MLS where the MLS itself is not properly filled out. There are things that aren't complete. There's information that hasn't been provided. And if you look on the back end of the MLS, this is what it looks like. And there is a ton of individual search criteria, individual pieces of information. This isn't everything. This keeps going, page after page of details that we can put in about the property. And the idea is that we want to fill out every field we possibly can. We want to make sure the MLS is filled out as completely as possible because keep in mind, it's precisely this information which ends up feeding the giant public websites like Redfin and Zillow and Trulia and all the others. So they get their information from the MLS. So we have to make sure we optimize that. And one of the things we have to do, of course, is get outstanding and getting great photos of your place. Even if we have to do it quickly, we can get great photos. I have amazing photographers. I'll show you some examples in just a little bit. But another thing that's very important is having a floor plan of your property. Believe it or not, people love floor plans. And there's actually really interesting statistics on floor plans because MLS listings that have floor plans get increased engagement. People spend more time on the listing. They get more in-person showings. And the really interesting one is that they get 15% fewer unqualified showings. So in other words, people disqualify themselves because they look at the floor plan and they're like, oh, this isn't the right dimensions, or it's too big, or it's too small. And they take themselves out of the running, which means we can be more efficient selling your home. So, and if you don't have a floor plan, don't worry because I have software that I can use to create a floor plan for your property. So if we sell your property together, we will have a floor plan. Don't worry. Every single listing that I do always has a floor plan. So optimizing the MLS is job number one. That's our first priority. But beyond that, there's a ton of advertising options, including YouTube, which is king. And by the way, there's a good chance that you're watching this video because I am promoting this video on YouTube. So in other words, I use YouTube advertising all the time, all the time. It's part of my career, as part of my business. I know it very well. I also use Facebook ads, and we want to use those platforms to drive traffic and interest to your open house. Right? Job number one is getting the property ready. We have to do that quickly because you want to sell the house quick. And then once everything's ready, I got to get the photographer in there, get all the photos. Then I got to fill out the MLS. And when it's time to open, we have to have that open house. And probably what we're going to do is introduce it on the MLS on a Monday, maybe a Tuesday. And then I'm going to have an advertising campaign that's going to start off right away to advertise Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for the open house that we're going to host that very first weekend. And the metrics are very, very clear to me. We want to get 300,000 impressions on the ads. This is what I do. So these numbers probably don't mean that much to you, but I want you to know that I have very clear targets of what I'm trying to generate. And if we get 300,000 impressions, we're going to end up with probably about 2,500 clicks. And that's probably going to generate about 50 groups of open house visitors. So what a group might be a husband and wife, maybe a family with one or two children, whatever. Maybe someone comes with their parents, someone comes with somebody else, whatever the case may be, that's a group. So we want 50 groups to visit the open house. If we can do that, if these metrics, we're going to sell your house and we're going to sell it at a price that you're going to like. And the next two sections are going to talk about that in more detail. How do we make your house look as good as possible? So curb appeal is the outside of the house and staging is the inside of the house. Both are incredibly important. Curb appeal is what you see when you first drive up to the property. You haven't even stepped inside yet. And it's a fascinating thing that happens. It's a psychological chain reaction that comes when you see the outside of the house and it looks beautiful from the outside. Inside the person's brain, they're thinking, oh my gosh, this place looks so beautiful. I hope the inside looks as good as the outside. That's a very important thing that happens because the opposite happens if the house doesn't look good. If it looks bad, then you're immediately thinking, oh my gosh, I don't like the way it looks. I hope the inside basically validates my first impression, which is not good. So if my first impression is good, I'm going to look for evidence that my first impression was accurate. This is human nature, it's psychology. And if my first impression was bad, I'm going to look for evidence to say that my first impression was correct in that case also. So it creates this spiral effect. That first impression is incredibly important. And there's lots of little things that we can do, like little details that, again, you're in a rush, you want to sell your house quickly, but there's lots of little things that we can do to make it look more beautiful, right? Trim those hedges, we can power wash the driveway. Those things are easy to do. They can be done in a few days. There's all sorts of other things that probably take more time. We might not have time to do it depending on how much of a rush you're in, but changing the front door can make a huge impact. It doesn't really cost that much. And of course, you can do landscaping, which makes a difference as well. Again, depending on your time frame, the number one thing we have to do is declutter and clean up the inside of the house. But let's talk about photography because these photographers, I have some great photographers, one in particular that I love, and she is a magician with what she's able to do with photographs. It makes such a huge difference to show good photography versus photography that isn't that great. And it ends up giving us a bunch of awesome photos that we can use in that MLS listing. And that's going to go a long way to generating interest and getting people to come to the open house. So photography is critical. Number four is staging, and that's the inside of the house. And how do we build connection with the people who are walking into that open house? And there too, the national statistics say that good staging can provide 5 to 10% increase in sales price. Honestly, here in Orange County, Southern California, it's not true because we're talking about homes that are already over $1 million. So you're not going to get an extra $100,000 as a result of staging, but you can easily get 3, 4, 5% more easily. Sometimes even more than that. It's hard to tell, of course, because you can't split test these. You can't do it one way and then do it the other way and compare the two. You're only going to do it one way. But staging is almost always profitable. But more importantly than getting 4% more in sales price, which is awesome, and I'm sure that's something that you want, but it sells twice as fast. Well-staged homes sell twice as fast on average. That's the key. We want this thing in contract within 2 weeks. And ideally, we have a short escrow period as well. That depends on the offers that come in, but we want to sell this thing quickly and have this transaction done. So with staging, we're talking about bringing a company in to bring in furniture, bring in all sorts of furnishings. That might not be relevant for you because, again, you're in a rush. The house probably is not vacant, so we don't have the option to come in from scratch and have stagers. But there's a lot of things that we can just do just on your own. Do it yourself. There's a lot of things we can do to make the home look more warm, more inviting. Things like these pillows, these thick cable knit throws, these blankets. They're beautiful. I have a bunch of them. This is probably the highest ROI in real estate is these blankets that you see on the screen. Every good open house, you see these blankets. They're big, thick cable knit. They're luxurious, gorgeous, heavy blankets, and you see them draped over couches or on the side of the bed in the master bedroom. Whatever the case may be, we can get a few of these. I have a few as well that I can help. Let's get some indoor plants, right? Indoor plants make your place look beautiful. As well, there's other details that we can add, like these rolled up towels. You'd be surprised. It makes it look like a resort. They look gorgeous. Get some candles. These are all things that we can do to make your house look more warm, more inviting, and that's going to get us a higher sales price. You could bring in an extra 40 or 50 grand if you've got good staging, right? It's a big deal. It's very important. It makes an impact, and we're going to take advantage of that. So I have to ask you, who do you know that needs this information? You're still watching this video. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. If you have someone in your life, maybe someone in the family, a friend, a cousin, maybe someone at work that you know is trying to sell their property, please pass my name along. This barcode, this QR code in the corner will bring all my information right into your phone. Please pass my information along. I appreciate the referrals. I do a great job for my clients, and I love it and I appreciate it if you pass my name along. Okay, last but not least, selecting a strong agent. So look, is this self-serving? Of course it's self-serving. This whole video is self-serving. This is a way for me to advertise what I do and get exposure to people who are looking for things that I can help with. But the bottom line is your agent is your profit partner when you're selling your house. And if you need to sell it fast, you need a good agent that knows what they're doing, someone who knows how to answer the phone, knows how to talk to other buyers agents who are expressing interest and want to know what the situation is, right? You need someone who understands how those conversations take place, someone who understands value in the marketplace, and someone who can facilitate a smooth transaction. That's what you want. It's incredible to me. This is an unbelievable statistic. 49% of real estate agents have done 0 or 1 transaction in the past 12 months. That's insane. And you don't want to be with someone who's doing this part-time. If you need to sell your house and you need to sell it quickly, you need someone who is active, someone who's in the market full-time, someone who understands marketing. So look, there's a smart way to do this. I know you're in a rush to sell your house. Don't go right to a cash buyer, right? You're going to take a lower price. I can get you more than that. It's going to take a little bit extra time, but not a lot extra if we do it smart. Give me a call. I can help. This is what I do, and I love it. I love these sorts of listings. I appreciate your video, and I hope that I get an opportunity to meet you in person sometime soon.